Welcome back to another episode of the Real News Network podcast. My name is Mel Buer, and I am a staff reporter here at the Real News Network. I am so glad that you're back with us. The Real News is an independent, viewer-supported, nonprofit media network. We don't take corporate cash, we don't have ads, and we don't put our reporting behind paywalls. To stay up to date on the important stories that we're covering, sign up for our free newsletter at therealnews.com/sign-up. Follow us on social media and consider becoming a monthly sustainer at therealnews.com/donate. Anchor Brewing first opened its doors in San Francisco in 1896 and is widely considered to be one of America's pioneers in craft brewing. The beloved California institution has survived the peaks and troughs of extreme economic conditions in the United States, as well as Prohibition and 2 world wars. But according to spokespeople for Anchor's parent company, Japanese beer giant Sapporo, the brewery could not survive the economic fallout from the pandemic and announced last month that it would cease operations after 127 years. Anchor's unionized workforce, represented by International Longshore and Warehouse Union Local 6, released a statement via the union that read in part, "To Sapporo, Anchor Steam was just another line item in the budget of their multi-billion-dollar corporation and an asset to be cut up and sold. But it is the workers in the city of San Francisco that will suffer the consequences." In an effort to save the brewery and keep a respected San Francisco institution from dissolution, Anchor workers put their heads together and are making an attempt to purchase the brewery from Sapporo and turn it into a worker co-op. Here with me to talk about this incredible story are Patrick Machel and Kieran Engemann. Patrick is a production lead, an Anchor Brewing Union shop steward, and Kieran works in the packaging department. Thanks for coming on the show, guys.
Thank you.
To begin our conversation, I would like to get our audience up to speed on the organizing that's been happening at Anchor Brewing over the last couple of years. Can you just give us the broad strokes of your unionization at the brewery and what's been going on up to the announcement of the sale?
Yeah, from the beginning, we did our underground campaign around 2018-ish, went public around 2019, got our first contract in about 7 months. Pretty historic contract because we're the first craft brewery union in the country, so we didn't really have a lot of examples to take, so we had to essentially create our own contract through just what we were doing, right? And then that was a 3-year contract. And then we just got our second contract about a month or 2 months before the news came out to the public that they were shutting down. That was a longer fight. We were ready in July of the year before. Pretty much told the company that hey, we're ready. Let's do this because it's going to be a long, contract fight. We want to change a lot of things. And they denied it until January, thinking that they could get a contract done in 3 months. It didn't. We ended up going 4 or 5 months, so we were out of the contract for a little while, and eventually we had to get a mediator into the negotiations. And someone's vacuuming. So we had to get the mediator, and here we are today. It's closing down. Took us by surprise. We kind of knew the writing on the wall, anyways, but just the amount the quickness that it happened almost seems like a big middle finger to the working people there. But yeah, that's broad stroke.
Yeah, it seems like, just from the brief bit here about how the union contract was kicked down the road, the negotiations took so long, it really seemed like, I don't know, does it seem like the company was dragging its feet for the express purpose that they knew the sale was coming down the pike? Do you even want to speculate on that? Or what's your sense of that from the shop floor?
I mean, I don't want to speak for Patrick, but I know that it felt at times that there was just not a lot of clear communication and not a lot of clear direction out of higher management. That's just kind of the feeling from Patrick could have a much better understanding. He's there talking to them constantly, but for most of the guys on the brewery floor that aren't involved in all the caucusing, that's just your day-to-day kind of feels like that. There's a massive gap between how we can communicate with the people upstairs, how they communicate with us. And I think you saw it affect a lot of things, mainly the contract negotiation. I don't know if it was necessarily malice, but it definitely just seemed unorganized.
Yeah, I feel like they were dragging their feet and they wanted to get it done and clean really quickly, not understanding how much we were invested into trying to change it. the last month, or the meeting that they had with us saying that they're closing down and they're enacting we got the WARN Act thing, so we got our severances and stuff like that, is they were saying that they were trying to sell it for a year before, but we never heard any news of this happening until like that month. I'm pretty sure they knew, and they just were playing dumb to us the whole time. Like, the people that were managing Anchor weren't really Sapporo employees. They were still Anchor employees. And I feel like Sapporo kept them in the dark too. Or if there was people that knew what was going on, they're kind of being assholes about the information. But yeah, like they wanted to do like a wage freeze for their first economic proposal, and then like do like a 1% raise for 3 years. And we were like, no, the inflation has gone crazy. Like, we're doing multiple jobs. Like, we had to learn automated robots. Kieran's helped me out on setting that automated robot up in the morning. But like, it's way more involved of a process now with half of whatever the staff was in the first contract. So of course we wanted to change things, but the fact that they wanted to do a wage freeze, really glad that we pushed back against that, because then we would have had nothing. And then they would have closed and we would have gotten no raises whatsoever.
So this sudden closure announcement comes down last month, from the various Twitter posts, and really just the response across the internet. It came as a surprise to pretty much everyone that this was going to happen. I mean, this is a San Francisco institution, right? This brewery's been around through the San Francisco earthquake, through world wars, through prohibition, through, all these, the Great Depression, through all the sorts of, things that you would consider to be life-altering economic crises. And the response that these spokespeople are giving to journalists who are asking questions is that the pandemic economy is finally the thing that's causing it to shut its doors. What was kind of the union's response? I mean, obviously this came as a shock to everyone. As far as I know, the Chronicle was putting out articles before you even got notified, right?
Yeah, 2:00 in the morning, which I guess we found out that like that's when Japan's market closes. It's around like 5 or 6 p.m. over on their side, but they got it before we did. So my phone died pretty much that whole week because everybody was reaching out. But yeah, the responses that the company was giving, like, it's a lazy response in my opinion.
Yeah. What do you think is really going on here, right? In terms of the closure, do you really think that this is due to the economic conditions, or, again, I'm not trying to get you to speculate, but, it does seem a little weird. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that just won't, what do you think their reasoning is?
Kieran, do you want to answer that? I figured you'd want to.
Yeah. I mean, I guess really it would be speculation on my part, but it feels like, it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation, like you said. They have plenty of other breweries. They had just bought Stone, which just expanded. Like, it's not like Sapporo is necessarily hurting. If they really wanted to try and pump life into it, I think they could have. Like, the funds, I'm sure, were there. I think it just kind of became more of a headache than they wanted it to be. And they also had just recently purchased Stone, so they kind of had another area to set up a headquarters in the United States. They have 3 Sleeman breweries in Canada, so they have plenty of locations in North America. I think they kind of just got disinterested and wanted to move on.
Yeah. And the thing is, with our brewery, it's a very unique brewery. We have parts in there that were made in like West Berlin, right? And they've been that line has been running for decades and decades, just kind of improving on itself. And like the processes that we do are kind of antiquated. And the thing is like with our company, like there's a love of the craft of what it is, and like an understanding of what we mean to San Francisco and its culture, right? That like, yeah, beer tastes change, it's the industry, right? And it's kind of in a downward spiral right now with breweries of our size, right? But it almost felt like Sapporo had no idea what Anchor was, didn't really care about whatever the history was. It's pretty like clear with that rebrand that they didn't understand what type of people bought this beer. And with that rebrand, we were already getting kind of like heat for Sapporo buying us out, right? Because that's like a selling out kind of situation. But then the rebrand goes and it's like, well, there goes any like diehard Anchor fans that we had, right?
Right.
So it feels like they didn't take any care or time or effort into what we were as a workforce and what we were as a company.
Right. But certainly I would assume that a lot of that is a motivating factor for the workers coming together to try and buy out Anchor from Sapporo and turn it into a worker co-op. Do you want to kind of expand a little bit more on your sort of reasons for doing that beyond, because, you know, we're not just talking about saving the brewery for the sake of the jobs of these individuals, right? We're also talking about reaching back into the community and really trying to preserve an institution that cares about the San Francisco community and, you know, cares about its place in that community. And it certainly feels that way in sort of how you're starting to, you know, fundraise for this. But do you just kind of want to give a bit more about the motivations for even going to the corporation in the first place?
You want to take that?
Yeah. I'll do it.
I can't. We're going to let you.
Yeah, I think like one of the driving forces about trying to go into the co-op is wherever you are in like the beer world when you work at Anchor. Like I was not a huge craft beer person. I'm not like very particular about beer. Never had a position in a brewery before. Never did any home brewing. But it doesn't take you very long when you get into Anchor to kind of feel that historic love for the place. And I think a lot of us just couldn't stand to like let it go like that. I mean, there was no lead up. It just kind of suddenly dropped on us. Sure, we saw certain things that made it look very apparent that was kind of the future of the brewery, but it's like we never got a chance to do anything. And we have a lot of legacy employees. That's what we call guys who were there for Fritz's ownership. And his whole thing when he owned it and what those employees kind of pass down to you as a new guy coming in is to really care about what you're doing. You know, whether it's making boxes, taking slip sheets off, whether you're in fermentation, take pride in it. And because every piece of the puzzle affects everything down the line, whether you're making boxes, whether you're making the beer. And I think when you're kind of constantly taught that when you work there, you're not going to just like let the doors shut. And ultimately, because we are constantly the ones working on all of it, and we're kind of the ones picking up the pieces when things go awry, I think we all felt like, hey, we basically run this brewery anyways. So why are we going to let it go into the hands of another corporation? We don't need this hassle. We don't need this headache. What can we do to make sure that we're still there? And I think it's kind of surprising because I was in our first meeting that Pat and the union set up about whether or not we would want a co-op. I was kind of surprised how many people went. Just because, like, you know, some people had pretty, like, openly expressed, like, hey, I don't know, this place has worn me out in the last few years, and, like, reasonably so. We had a lot to deal with. But just about everyone showed up. And guys who are very historically, like, not pro-union were kind of immediately like, I don't care what it takes. Like, I'll join the union. I'll do this and that. Like, whatever it takes to make sure this place stays open. So there's just a lot of congruency in the fact that all of us take the utmost pride in this place, and we can't stand to see it close. Yeah.
Patrick, what was the kind of process for, you know, you have this meeting, you have, you know, seen that folks are expressing a willingness, an ability to go all in on this sort of worker co-op proposition, right? What's next? What do you send a letter to the company? What has the company response been like? Or, you know, where are we at in terms of like, how did the process sort of get started? And, you know, how do you feel about the fundraising, things like that?
Yeah. So there was a couple of questions in there that I might miss, but, essentially, like it's always been kind of a running joke on like, what if we own this place? And I think when the closure happened, that the gears in my head were just like, I'm not even going to like think that this is actually a reality and just try and push for this. And I asked our international organizer, Evan McLaughlin, yo, like, what would it take to do a co-op? And like, he was like, I don't know, but let's go talk to people. And it pretty much was hitting the ground running. We were learning new things every day, every week. The group turns a little bit bigger. There are people that used to work there that were in pretty high positions that we reached out to and asked if they would be willing to help us out. Because, I mean, we're production workers, you know, we don't know exactly how to run a business. I mean, not yet, at least, but, you know, having that kind of experience at the table, and like what Kieran said earlier, with people that were pretty anti-union coming into the fold and like seeing that these are union workers that are starting this process, that they're behind us with it. We did give a notice to Sapporo that like, hey, we are trying to buy this. What do you want from us? And they gave a response with, if you have a qualified individual or something like that, like I'm assuming a lawyer, then we could talk about it being serious. So we sent them a bankruptcy lawyer, and then they dragged their feet for a little bit, I think like a week, which, you know, the news came out and it was like 3 weeks later, we're done, right? So like a week is a lot. It's a very short time to get around to this, but they gave out some financial information we know of 2 investors. And then we asked for it so that we can make a competitive bid and actually like start the fundraising for it. Cause we don't know how much it really is worth or how much Sapporo is trying to get rid of it for, you know?
Right.
And, they didn't respond. And then out of nowhere, they're just like, we're closing this to anybody and everybody. It's too close to the August 1st date, blah, blah, blah. And then we haven't heard anything pretty much since. Our bankruptcy lawyer has been talking to the assignee, because it isn't technically a bankruptcy like a Chapter 7 or 11. It's something that they use called the ABC process, which stands for the assignment to the benefit of creditors, which is like a quicker, faster way of pretty much what a bankruptcy is. But I guess our bankruptcy lawyer has been talking to the assignee, and they've been like trying to establish some contact. But we have been like, I have another call after this that we're setting up a bank account to start fundraising and getting like a GoFundMe. We already have an LLC for the new company, trying to like move as quickly as possible, but we're kind of in the dark. And the fact that they gave it to 2 investors that were basically like, I got 20 mil, like, all right, well, here's all our financial information, and then your own workers ask for that, and you drag your feet, and then you act like it's not a real attempt at buying it. It goes to show like how much that they actually respected us.
Yeah, it seems like they're just not taking it seriously at all. And it is a serious business proposition, you know, making the decision to assume the responsibility of a business like this and convert it into a worker co-op is not something that you take lightly. And it definitely shows how much you and your fellow coworkers really care about the place that you've, you know, build careers in, you know, and you want to see that institution continue. So in terms of raising funds, you sort of appealed to the wider community. You have the idea to do more crowdfunding. Is there any other sort of like fundraisers or things that you're doing that you can talk about now that are sort of part of that plan? Or is this really going to be something that you really want to kind of really lean on the community's support to help you accomplish?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because whenever we were talking about co-ops and actually buying a business, there's a lot of legalities that are involved with it. Like I can't just, you know, put it into my bank account, because then there's problems legally with that, which is why some of this process is a little bit longer than what we thought. Because we just want to make sure that like when people are putting money into this or helping us like crowdfund to it, you know, like we have to be very clear that this isn't investing in the company yet. This is just only helping us out with certain fees. And if we don't explain that to people, then we can get into a lot of trouble with that. Mm-hmm. But that's why we've teamed up with some solid lawyers, like Project Equity, like specializes in doing this kind of thing, as well as Tuttle Law Group, which is also helping us out tremendously on this. That they have been essentially kind of like running us through what we need to do. We're working on a business plan. I think we have a meeting later this week about it. But funding wise, like I'm assuming it's going to happen probably in this week, and we'll probably put it out on one of our social medias. But yeah, other than that, I mean, like we have a little team of people also trying to work with other breweries to try and bring it back to the craft of collaborating with breweries. Because once you go corporate, you're kind of just like, we don't care about anything. We only care about our profits. And the fact that we're trying, as workers, trying to reach out to other breweries and be like, hey, we're trying to buy this back. You want to make something, we call it Solidarity Ale, which is based off a recipe from way back in the day that used corn as like the main ingredient because it was a lot cheaper, that we feel like it made sense for other breweries to kind of tap in on this, and then they could, sell it if they want, but also put proceeds into this fund that we're going to set up. And it's a fun way to get like your local community on board. We've been telling people to reach out to our Twitter or email to get the recipe from us, and then obviously they could tweak it. It's their brewery. We don't have a facility to brew it, so we can't really do it. But yeah, that's like the major thing I think we're trying to work on, to kind of put it out there that like we're not craft brewers, but like we're a craft brewery, and we're trying to bring it back to whatever its roots are.
Right. Kieran, sort of a follow-up question to that then. What has been the public's response to this whole effort? Obviously on social media, you saw quite a bit of shock from a lot of people. How has that translated to support from the community at large in San Francisco?
It's pretty funny because like we were all kind of taken aback the first couple days when we announced the closure. It felt like the entire city of San Francisco was inside P-Taps buying like whatever they could, like they wanted to show like, hey, we appreciate merchandise, we appreciate you. People were wearing shirts with pretty tasteful messages to Sapporo, which was pretty entertaining. But it happened so quickly, like just about as quickly as us announcing the shutdown. Everybody was talking about how they couldn't believe it. They wanted to support us. I mean, it's up and down. I mean, my girlfriend's family's from Wisconsin, and there's people in the Midwest who like they don't get Anchor that consistently or anything, but they're like, I can't believe this. Like, it used to be the thing where like if you went to California, you would come back with Christmas ale, or you would like, they knew about Steam, they understood Steam, they really appreciated it. Her dad actually like sent the family photos of him buying the last 2 variety packs in their grocery store.
Wow.
So it's just like everybody wants to know what they can do. One of our family friends who lives actually pretty like close by, grew up in SF his whole life. He's very vocal, and he's like, however I can help and get in and, support this, help fund it. And everybody loves the fact that it's a co-op. I mean, beyond just saving Anchor, everybody's so hyped about the idea of us co-oping it. I think if there was like kind of rumblings of like a new investor, like a new Fritz or something like that, people would be like, that's awesome, sweet, like Anchor gets to stay alive. But I think the fact that it's the workers' push, it's a co-op, it makes everyone feel like they get to have their hands in it, and it makes everyone feel like Anchor really is their beer, right? Like they're just as much a part of the brewery as anyone else. They're just as much a part of the history, and I think that gets people riled up more than anything to like try and make sure that this doesn't go down. And I mean, Anchor, our Instagram, Anchor Union SF, does a great job of like plugging everybody who shouts us out, and you've seen some really creative stuff. Some guy just made a song about it, which is pretty cool. Up and down the streets, everybody's about it. My neighbor I see walking around in like a yellow Drink Steam hoodie a lot, which is pretty hilarious. Everybody came out to support. And I hope it doesn't die away. It doesn't feel like it. I mean, we're 2 weeks removed, which isn't that long, but I think that's long enough for like fever to die off. And I think people are just as about it as they were the day it was announced.
Right. Patrick, anything to add? I mean, I really want to drive home the point here that we're not just talking about, saving a brewery for the sake of good beer, right? It really is a sort of worker-led movement to really kind of save a cultural institution in the city. And I think a lot of folks across the country see a story like this, and I don't want to reduce it to the sort of underdog against the corporations kind of story. You know what I mean? But there is something really kind of magical and beautiful about this idea, especially in the current wave of labor organizing in this country, this sort of the working people against these faceless corporations that want to break up communities. You see a story like this and you can't help but just like really hope that there's some positivity that's going to come at the end of this very long, arduous sort of road,
Yeah, I mean, so like I started actually at Anchor as like a bar back and worked my way up to a lead at the brewery itself. There's 2 different buildings right across from each other. So I like know that bar pretty well. And when they were getting pretty much like murdered by the amount of people that were showing up. Like, there's a line around the block for pretty much 2.5 weeks straight, right? That I was there as kind of like auxiliary to, like, pretty much they would, like, customers would ask them questions, and, like, you know, like they're trying their best to get as much beer and as much merch out as possible, that they're like, I can't answer these fucking questions, you know, it's too much. So I was there helping out and answering questions to people, and, like, it is like there's like this amount of community involvement now that, like, it could be just because we're closing that they might not ever see it again. But there's a lot of people that I talked to that were just like, oh, I totally, like, used to drink you guys, but, like, I, you know, faltered off. But now drinking it again, I forget how crisp and how actually solid this beer is. And it's like, that's all that it was, you know. It's a pretty middle of the road dad type of beer. And it should have been marketed in that way. That's like, look, we're not trying to be some crazy ass IPA, milkshake IPA kind of bullshit, right? Like, we're good at what we do because it's what we've been doing for a century and almost a half, you know? And that should have been marketed in that way, that, like, to have people understand that, like, this is why you want to drink this beer, right? And then on top of that, it's like, we've been in Potrero Hill since, like, 65, I think. So we've been in that community for such a long time that, like, even before I worked there, I was working at a coffee shop in the same neighborhood. That, like, I was able to watch that whole neighborhood change in just a short span of, like, 10 years, right? The Anchor has always been there. It hasn't changed at all, other than adding that tap room, which we were a little late on that whole craze. But, you know, we've created a community there, and, like, there were regulars there that, like, they never went anywhere else. Like, we became friends with them. Like, I've seen kids grow up there. You know, I've been invited to like dugout level seats with a regular at the Giants game. Like, we were part of the community, and we still kind of are. You know, you walk around and, like, in the city, like, people know you. You know, like, oh, you're one of the Anchor guys. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I think the fact that we're not going down without a fight, and with all this, you know, doom scroll that San Francisco's in right now, that is pretty poetic. That this place that is a majority of people are, like, multiple generation San Franciscan here. That, like, we're not going down without a fight. We're not going to be part of the headlines like you guys think that we will be. Right.
That's about it that I have for my questions. You guys, either of you have any final thoughts, things that you want my audience to really take away from this conversation that maybe we haven't touched on?
Social medias. If you want me to plug those, I don't know. Like, dude.
Sure. Yeah.
So Twitter is where we're kind of releasing a lot of the news that we get, because it's pretty hard to try and release it on every platform all the time, and you don't want to be, like, stale. You know what I mean? But our Twitter is Anchor Union SF. Our Instagram is Anchor Union. Our Gmail is anchorunion@gmail. And our Facebook is Anchor Union. So it's pretty... there he goes. He's out. So those are those. And then on top of that, like, you know, like, we're very proud of what we do. And even if this kind of falls through, the fact that we were able to put our name in there and actually do it and try, like, as a message to everybody else that has this happen, if you really care about your workplace, like, organize your workers and, like, work together to come. I mean, it'd be sick, you know, buy your own business, but also, you know, just organize yourselves to get a better, you know, equality. What is it? A better wage, like, better life. There we go. You know,
yeah,
we're very proud that we were union.
Right. And hopefully that can continue with this co-op. Hopefully you are successful. So yeah, for our listeners who are interested in the updates of this ongoing sort of saga about trying to buy Anchor Brewing from the corporate giant, the Twitter account is the way to go. That's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining us. And I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. I think this is a fantastic story. I currently live in Los Angeles, and I'm heading up north at the end of the week. So, you know, I'll be in your neighborhood for a good weekend.
Sick.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's for Cal Extreme is what I'm going up to Northern California.
I was going to say,
it's a pinball
if you're
expo.
up there on the 26th, Enterprise Brewing is releasing the first Solidarity Ale.
Ooh, Well, hey, I'll make a note of it in our show notes so that folks know that that's going to happen. That's it for us here at the Real News Network podcast. Once again, I'm Mel Buer. Follow us on your favorite social media, and don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter so we can continue bringing you independent, ad-free journalism. Until next time.
Thank you so much for watching the Real News Network, where we lift up the voices, stories, and struggles that you care about most. And we need your help to keep doing this work, so please tap your screen now, subscribe, and donate to the Real News Network. Solidarity forever.